Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Read With You Presents. We love talking about all things literacy and learning, and we love educating children. One of the ways that we do that is through our extensive library of books. Those can be found on our website, readwithyou.org, and click on the link for book catalog to see all our latest books. Hello and welcome to Read With You Presents. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and my guest today is Corey Taylor. Corey, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I am excited for a little bit different conversation today, and this is something we haven't really talked about on the show, and I think is going to hopefully give us a new perspective and have us look at things in a different way. So, Corey, to start off, I would love for you to tell us a little bit just about yourself and your growing up experiences.
Okay, well, first of all, I was born with a severe facial deformity that is known as a cranial facial deformity. Basically, what it was is my cranium and my face did not develop completely. So when I was born, I had no nose. There was no bone structure at all. All I had was two little pinholes as nostrils. My left eye was severely underdeveloped, so much so that you can see the red tissue behind the eye, and the eye was nothing but like a white pebble. And that was how it looked for about 18 years before I finally got a glass eye. I had over 50, and I mean, like at least, I always say 50 surgeries because that's like narrowing it down, but it was like 50 plus surgeries, not including like the 1-day surgeries, because to me, they were like a hangnail. And so basically I spent the first 18 years having surgery. I went to high school like everybody else, and I graduated, started college, and I stopped because one, it just wasn't for me, and two, because my grandmother suffered a massive stroke and I wanted to help take care of her.
Okay. Now, so as you were talking, I was picturing, I bet a lot of us have seen the movie Wonder, and little Augie in that movie is in a similar situation where he has had so many surgeries and where he is dealing with kind of the same thing. And that's what I was picturing as you were talking. Now, tell me first, how in your family, how did your family deal with, all these surgeries and with you looking different than other people?
My family was honestly the best. Like, I can't say enough amazing things about them. Like, and I have my mother, my grandmother, and my father, who were my rocks growing up. Like, without them, like, if my mom and dad couldn't bring me to the city for appointments, we live about 2 hours away. If they couldn't bring me, my grandmother and he's technically my step grandfather, but my grandfather brought me. And it was always like, they were just amazing. I had a lot of cousins. My dad's side of the family, he was one of about, if I get this wrong, I'm going to kill me. One about like 8, 9 kids, like four boys and 3 girls or something like that. So I had a lot of cousins growing up, and none of them ever even acknowledged my appearance. I would go over to my grandmother's on that side of the family for Christmas and Thanksgiving, play video games with my cousins, and I had a cousin that lived right next door to me, who was on my mom's side. He was like my best friend growing up, where the only thing he did was if anybody said anything wrong, he would beat him up a little bit. But my family has always been like my rock.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, that's so great that you had that support. Now, as you went out into the world and started school, I imagine that you had, not all positive experiences, not exactly like your family, but tell us a little bit about that. How did the other kids treat you?
Well, one of the things that I want to mention is before I even went into the elementary school or even junior high and high school, that what they did is they would show a video, like kind of like a whole movie of me and like me talking, me playing with my cousins, watching wrestling and stuff like that, to show the kids that I was like everybody else. And that, I think, went a very long way. And that, I think that really helped, because then when I would go to school, and like I said, this is elementary school, high school, junior high, I would hear, "Hey, Corey," and of course I go back, "Hey," and in my mind I'm like, I don't know who that was, and that happened a lot. But if there was ever a new kid and he meant no harm, he's like, "Hey, what happened to his face?" And then about five other kids would be like yelling at him, like, "Hey, don't say that!" And I'm like, "Guys, it's okay. It's not a big deal." But the whole, if anybody ever gave me an issue, which was very, very, very rare, the entire school had my back.
Oh, I love that. I love that your parents and the administration were proactive and headed off the questions before they started. Now, I can see how that in elementary school, especially, most of the kids are just curious. And so if you satisfy their curiosity, then okay, now they know and they're not going to have to ask questions and they're not going to worry about it. Middle school and high school is a little different, a little different ball game, right? Kids aren't always nice, but you said for the most part you had a positive experience.
Oh, definitely. Like, and I know, like a lot of kids with facial differences, they do have bullying and issues like that. But I think partly because of the area I live in, and it's like a very tight knit community, I think that kind of helps. And the fact, like I said, like before I went into middle school, so in sixth grade, they went to all the other sixth grades in the district and showed them that video. So that kind of thing I think really helped. And I was always someone, like, I was never, up until I was like in my teenage years, I was never shy. I was always very happy, very happy, easygoing, and I never gave anybody any reason to give me problems. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I was always very open about, my appearance and about everything. So nobody, had to give me problems because I never gave them a reason in a way. And then as I entered junior high and high school, I kind of suffered like depression. So in that point, it was like I didn't care what they said because anything they said was no worse than the stuff I was saying to myself at the time.
Okay. And I think that's really true for most of us. What the worst is when people say stuff that is already inside that we're already feeling and it just echoes what we already feel. Okay. So, but did you ever have, I mean, it sounds like this perfect leave it to beaver existence, right? But tell us some of the struggles then. I mean, obviously depression, you just mentioned. What else?
I think the biggest struggle was a lot of like the medical stuff, and that was
Mm.
at the very beginning because let me put it this way, I was 3 years old and they were insisting to my mother I was blind, mentally challenged, and deaf. And at that point, she saw me at home, how I was with the other kids. So then they were telling her, "Oh, well, okay, but he's definitely blind." And she looked at the doctor, glared at the doctor, took a penny out of her purse, threw it on the floor, and said, "Corey, pick that up." Got off her lap, picked it up, looked at her, looked at the doctor. He had a look of shock on his face because, of course, big New York doctor, he couldn't have been proved wrong. So it kind of shocked him a little bit. But there's a lot of stuff like that where, like, I've had amazing medical staff. Like, I've had some of the greatest doctors work on me. But at the same time, some of the doctors, like a very rare few, but some of them, not the best bedside manner.
I think we've all run into that. Your mom sounds amazing, though. Good for her. I love it when I hear about parents who are just advocates for their kids. And I think, so often as parents, that's what we have to do. We have to step in there and, we know what we know as parents. And so to tell the medical professionals, to tell the staff at the school and the teachers and whoever needs to hear it, what we know as parents with our, parental intuition, our mother's intuition, and share that with others. So good for her. She sounds awesome.
Oh, trust me. When I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I could be a wimp when it came to like stubbing my toes and stuff like that. I still can be. But growing up, like the pain of the surgeries, she would know I was hurting when I was in pain because I was always like, after I wake up after a surgery, can I go home now? Are we done? No, you have to stay for a couple of days. And why? Like, I was always you had no idea I was in pain. So when there was a one time when I was a teenager, one of my last surgeries, I was dealing with a fellow, which is like a doctor that was coming in from another hospital, and he was kind of working under my doctor. So he was the one who was doing most of the work at the time for me. And my mother called him because I was having a lot of pain after a surgery, and he actually told her, "Well, your son's kind of a wuss." And
You're kidding.
her exact words were, "He's a wuss when he stubs his toes, not when it comes to surgeries." She knew how it was. So the doctor like rolled his eyes and he, fine, did what he, put in a script for me to get. It was like Tylenol or something, nothing even heavy, but just something that, because I was in a lot of pain because I think this was actually the point where they took the skin off my nose. Like all you saw, like, I hated it so much. Just like reliving it in my head right now, I'm cringing. They had to actually take the exterior off my nose so it could air out. So
Oh,
I felt like a monster at that point. I was already a teen, like 13, 14, 15, 16, around there. But when they did that surgery, like I did not want to leave the house. I literally felt like a monster. Had to wear like a brace for like 2, 3 weeks. I went back and that same fellow that called me a wuss, when he took it off, it was like a snip, snip, rip,
mm.
and it hurt. And I didn't know how it looked. My mom didn't expect it to look the way it did. So I even heard her gasp. And she didn't mean to, obviously. It just like, it was a shock. And then this doctor, without warning, he shoved a mirror in my face. And I didn't cry. I just let out a breathless sob. I could not, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to handle it. And that was just, it was horrible. It traumatized me for a while because we were not told to expect that. So to have that happen, it was tough. And mom and afterwards he was going to just send me out to the waiting room because I had to get like x-ray pictures. And my mom looked at him and she's like, "You are not sending him out there without a bandage or anything because it's a health, hazard, because with it wide open to germs and everything." And there was so many other kids in the other room that I'm not ashamed to say it would have scared the crap out of them. Like it would have scared them, I mean, not because oh my god, it looked horrible, but you see a kid walking out with, without his nose attached, it's going to traumatize them, and like then they're going to run for the hills. So she was thinking for the kids, like you can't let do not make him go out like this. So again, the doctor kind of rolled his eyes and put a piece of gauze on my nose. So needless to say, we did not see that doctor for very long after that because mom was like, she was not putting up with that. She was just no. And
Wow.
you don't mess with mama there.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is just, thank you for letting us in and, letting us experience what that is like. And I think that, you know, I'm so glad that the kids and that you had a fairly good school experience because when you hear all the things, we've just heard this tiny portion of what you had to go through. And then on top of that, some kids are also dealing with bullying and isolation and all these things at school. So I'm glad that that one wasn't a major issue for you in addition to all this. It sounds like, your parents and even the educators that you dealt with were really helpful in and instrumental in making sure, advocating for you. Is there anything else specific that you would add that they did to help you during your school years?
The biggest thing, and this is educators and my family, they always wanted me to know that they were there if I needed anything, but they never treated me like I was different. And that's something that goes a long way, is because when you look different for whatever reason, you're gonna feel insecure at times. So when you have people that you can always count on if you need to, like if I did have any bullies, I knew if I told one teacher, that kid probably wouldn't be in school for another day. like there wasn't like an issue I had with a girl like in elementary school. Nothing big, but like just name calling behind my back, and I heard it, and I went home and told my mother, and she told the story that after she went and told the school just because she wanted them to know, make sure they were aware of it. They said before she even left the school, the girl was down in the office.
Mm. That is so
And
awesome that they were on your side like that.
yeah, and I know like there's a lot of schools that aren't like that. I met someone who has had like I don't want to give too much detail because it's not my story to tell, but she had the exact opposite experience, and where like the school and like everybody basically just put her down and made her feel like dirt because of her upbringing and because of her facial difference. And
Yeah.
it kills me because like this girl is one of like the greatest people I have ever met. She's just very sweet, very outgoing, and at times she's afraid to leave her house because of how people are treating her.
Yeah. Oh, that just breaks my heart.
Yeah, I kind of like I reached out to her. Like it was actually a friend had me reach out to her because she saw her on the app Musically, and my friend was like, Corey, she's like, I don't want this to sound wrong, but it's the first time I ever saw someone that looked kind of like you. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna reach out to this girl, and now we talk on Skype like all the time, and like she don't get me wrong, she lives a good life. It's just now and then she lets the crowd kind of get to her, but you can never tell if you were like out and you saw her because she always keeps her head up high. She doesn't let anybody know it's bothering her. And then she comes home and she like talks to me, and I'm like, all right, stop putting up the shield. Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's so great that, our childhood really does have a lot to do with, we keep things around from our childhood. And so, whether that's a rough time in school or a building up experience in school, it sticks with us. And I think that's a good message for parents to remember. And as we're raising our kids, to teach them to be kind, so we're not building these things on kids. Now, Corey, I know people will want to hear more from you. Where can they go? What's the best place? And tell us things that you're working on, how we can get in touch with you.
The best place to reach me is probably my website. It's CoreyRTaylor.com. And that's like I'm then there's like an email through there or on Facebook, because honestly I'm always on Facebook, whether it's on my phone or on my laptop, it's always open. And right now I'm actually working on getting my writing career started. I'm trying to find like either a job in writing where I'm doing something for a newspaper, a magazine, or a website, or my goal is to be like a novelist. And I actually have a psychological thriller that I've had edited professionally and everything, and I see it as a 3-book series. And then there's tons of potential for like standalones in the series, and that is my baby. And I'm still trying to find a publisher to grab that, and hopefully the end goal for that is for it to end up on Netflix.
Awesome. Oh, that's
and,
great.
and I'm doing motivational speaking as well, where I'm going to schools and talking about my quote wonder story. And basically, I usually ask the administrators like what they'd like me to talk about or gear toward, but usually it's about like overcoming obstacles and following your dream no matter what, and just don't let anything stop you.
Yes. Well, I think that you have helped us see some of those things today. Any final thoughts that you would share with parents and people who are working with children, specifically when they come across children who might not look the same as other kids?
Encourage everybody to just treat them like everybody else, and that goes. If it's a teacher, then make sure you treat that child like they're any other student. If they're talking when they're not supposed to be talking, call them out on it. And at the same time, take them aside when nobody's really watching, and say, hey, if you ever need anything, just know I'm here. Like make sure they know you're there for them, but at the same time, let them kind of do their own thing because they have to find themselves too.
Yes. Okay. I love it. Thank you so much for the things that you've shared with us today. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm truly I'm honored that you had me on the show.
Yes. And thank you everyone for listening to Read With You Presents.